Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. Shank, coming to you live from Walker Graham Middle School. And we're going to be moving to the next 3D shape that we have, or 3D figure, the polyhedron, whatever you'd like to call it. But we are going to be working with cones in this video. And on the front side, we're going to be working with the surface area. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we can do that quick math. That way we can maybe brush off some of that dust that we gathered overnight. So let's just multiply these numbers together. So always use your order operation. So we're going to use our exponents first. So we're going to do 9 times 3.14. That's going to be 28.26. And then we're going to do 3 times 5 is 15, and then 15 times 3.14 is 47.1. And when you add those two together, you're going to end up with 75.36. Again, the reason why we're doing this is you want to make sure that you're, stretching before an exercise or like a sport activity. That doesn't mean you just kind of go through the motions and do whatever you want. You want to be able to actually try this out for yourself and see, hey, can I, get my brain warmed up? So make sure that you're, pausing this video. You can try these out for yourself. You can use that Desmos calculator, use the handheld calculator, whatever works, as long as you're trying this out for yourself first. Of course, you can check this using the video or the calculator. So you can do, let's do 6 times 6 is 36, times 3.14 is going to be 113.04. Let's do 6 times 7 is 42. 42 times 3.14 is 131.88. Let me draw that 8 out. Add those together, and so we have 244.92. All right. So far we have these two. Again, we're just kind of doing some real quick, simple math, so we are good. Again, anytime I have this kind of symbol in the middle, again, that means divide. So we want to work in the top first, then we can divide. So let's do 9 times 5 is going to be 45 times 3.14, and then divide it by 3. So you should end up with 47.1, and as always, you can double check your answer. Maybe I make a mistake. It's okay. We move on, correct it, and then we move on again. And so lastly, you should end up with 263.76. All right. So now, why do we do that? Again, you want to be doing stretches that you're going to be using before whatever activity it is. So mainly if you're going for a run, you would stretch out your legs, right? You're not going to stretch out your arms or your neck when you're running. You want to, stretch out the things that you're using. And so these values that we have here, this is going to be similar to what we're going to be doing when we're solving for the surface area and volume of cones. All right, so some key ideas for this. It says the distance from the vertex of a cone to any point on the edge of its base is called the slant height. The slant height. And I have a picture in there as well, so that way you can see it. So that's the slant height of the cone. And so we're talking about that right there. Again, that's the outside amount that goes. Again, notice how it's not the height. It doesn't go straight up and down. It's slanted. So please make sure you see that keyword is slanted. And that says the surface area. So the surface area of a cone is the sum of the area of the base. The sum of the area of the base, and the area of the base, that's going to be our part in red. So let me just make a little star and say that's our part in red. Okay, and then it says we're adding the sum of the area of the base and the area of the lateral face. And what that's talking about is it's that area in blue. It's that area in blue. And when you think of the word lateral, it's talking about the amount that goes around it. Okay, and so that's why it's being wrapped around in a circular motion. And so it's talking about all that part in blue around that outside. Okay, and so you find the two areas of each of those, and then you just add them together. So, for example, it says when we are solving for the surface area of a cone, we need to use the formula, and we have the surface area is equal to pi times our radius squared plus pi times the radius times the slant height. And so it's saying that this term here is the area of the base. And we also say that this term on the right in blue is the area of the lateral surface or the lateral face. So remember, make sure you mark what those letters and variables stand for. Again, R is our radius. And don't forget, what happens if we don't have a radius? Well, let's remember that the radius, our radius R, is the diameter. So if they give us our diameter, just divide it by 2 to get our radius. And so we also remember, hey, this is the Greek letter pi, which for our case, we only need to remember it as 3.14. All right. Lastly, but not leastly, we have our L. Please do not use any other definition or term when we're talking about cones and pyramids. Our L is going to be the slant height. The slant height. Please make sure that you are labeling that carefully. All right, and just as a also quick reminder, make sure that you're thinking, okay, well, if we're finding surface area, what are our units going to be in? So let's say also our units will be to what power? It will be to the second power. Very good. So the second power. All right. Just a couple quick reminders, thinking back to previous times as well. All right. If you need to pause, catch up, take a deep breath, gather yourself, make sure you do. You don't want to be overstressed or anything like that. Always calm, cool, and collected. So now, for the first example, it says, it gives us our nicely colored shape. And again, similar steps as before. You want to label first, write our formula, substitute in the values for the variables, and then just simplify. All right, so let's see. It's saying that this 4 centimeters, it's directly pointing to that little red line right there. So what do you think that's going to be? Well, that's going to be our radius. Okay, that's going to be our radius R, and then our slant height is going to be L. And that's that 8 centimeters. Let's talk about that outside amount. So we labeled, let's write our formula out. So we have surface area. Surface area is equal to pi times the radius squared, and then plus the pi times the radius times the slant height. And so we have substitute in our values for our variables. So we wrote the formula, now let's substitute. So we have surface area equals, we have 3.14. We have, what's our radius? Well, it's 4 to second power. Please make sure this is not 4 times 2. It is 4 times 4, or you could just use the second power tool or button on the calculator. Again, that's the one next to the square root. Make sure you're using this one to make the number bigger, and then you use the square root to make it smaller. All right. So we have 4 squared, and then plus, again, we're going to have 3.14 times the radius again, which is just 4, and our slant height, which is 8. Alright, so we did the substitution. Now let's simplify. So what happens? Well, let's multiply this out. So we have surface area is equal to, again, do the order operations as always. And so yeah, this is going to be 50.24. I got that from doing 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 3.14 is this 50.24. Then we have plus, just multiply those 3 numbers together, and you should end up with 100.48. Well, lastly, add those 2 together to get your total surface area as 150.72, and then you have centimeters squared, because remember, we're working with our units to the second power, and so we know we are good. Make sure that you are doing this on your own. Again, I will be walking around to check your work to make sure you're all good. Give it an attempt. Again, you want to be able to climb the mountain on your own someday, but it is helpful to get some guidance. On the back, it says this. So now, again, I kind of separate it so that way it's a little bit easier to follow along. So on the back, we are still working with cones, but we're now working with volume. And so it says the volume of a cone, is one third the product of the area of the base, again that's that part in red, and the height. So make sure you're saying that a little bit different now. So we still have the area of the base, however, we're now using just the height. The height of the cone is the perpendicular distance from the, let's say the base, the center of the base, to the vertex. And so it's talking about, I'll show you in the picture right here. It's talking about it's going from the center of this base and it's going to the absolute endpoint of where that cone meets. So again, when you're thinking about a cone, it comes to a point, right? And so this point makes a V shape, which is why it's called the vertex. And again, it's saying it's perpendicular because, and if you look very closely, you can see, hey, there's a little box in there, meaning what? It forms a right angle. Very good. All right. So now, when solving for let's try this again. All right. When solving for the volume of a cone, we use the formula V equals 1/3 times big B times H, where B is the area of the cone. Oh, I messed up. That's all right. B is the area of the base, and H is the height of the cone. Can't do the dramatic voice every time because at some point I'll mess up. All right, so it says we call the area of the base, like I said, we call it big B. I got this one from one of my teachers way back when, and I always thought it was a helpful tool because it's referring to the area of the base. And what kind of base do we have? Well, we know it is a circular base, meaning we use the formula pi times the radius squared. And so again, this is the formula for the area of a circle. Okay, and that's why we're using that. Again, we can just do that on the side so it's a little bit easier for yourself. Please, 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 this is a key part to this because a lot of people mess up on this part. Make sure that you do not change 1/3 to a decimal. I don't know how many times I said this last year because this is what people were saying. They said that 1/3 equals 0.3. This is completely incorrect, and I will mark it wrong if you put that. Please just divide by 3 at the end, and I'll show you an example what I'm talking about. So again, make sure that you're not changing 1/3 to a decimal, just divide by 3 at the end. Okay. If you have any questions about that, please just pause, raise your hand. I'm here to assist you. For the first example, it gives you the picture, and so, all right, well, let's get some labels down. We have this perpendicular amount. This line here is going to be our height, h. And then what about this 4? Well, it's saying this whole distance across is 4, and so that is our diameter. And so what we need, however, is the radius. So the radius is going to be half of that. So half of 4, r equals half of 4, which is 2. And so then we can find the area of the base, which is big B. Again, we use that formula that we had. So it's the area of the base, which is pi times r squared. So we have big B equals 3.14 times the radius squared, which is 2 squared. Again, which will just be 4 times 3.14. So this is 12.56. I like doing this on the side first because it's a little bit easier, and again, we find the area of this base and then we can apply it. All right, so that formula that we have, let's do this next. So we have the volume is equal to, and we have the big B times h over 3. Again, that's the area of the base times the height divided by 3. So let's work in the numerator first by substituting in the values for the variables. And so we have the volume is equal to, again, we're going to use this big B that we found, so we have 12.56. That's going to be times our height, which is just 6, all over 3. So we have the volume is equal to, well, multiply these two together and the numerator first. So we have, this is going to be 75.36 divided by 3, which is equal to 25.12 meters cubed. Again, we're talking about cubic units because we are working with volume. Again, if you have any questions or need any clarifications, please do ask. Just pause it, raise your hand. I am there to assist. Make sure that you are labeling first. You can put the labels on the side if you'd like. Find that big B, which is your area of the base. Plug it into your formula, and it's literally just 2 steps. Now at this time, please try the your turn. Excuse me. For the blue shape, again, be able to label first and then plug those in. And then lastly, at the very bottom, it says what went wrong. And it says describe and correct the error in finding the cone's volume. And so again, this work shown is incorrect, which is why there's an X here. And so what I would like you to do is just write a sentence saying what the mistake was, and then please show the work for the correct answer. So again, the steps shown in step 1, they had the formula 1/3 times the area of the base times the height, and they had 1/3 times pi times 6 squared times 8. Multiply those together and divide it by 3 to get this answer. Again, this is incorrect, so please, at this time, find the correct solution.